Thanks, Jackie. Hi everyone, I'm Danny Martin, Senior Associate at Grey Park Sound and the current Mayfield Project Chair for Learning Environments Australasia. It's my great pleasure today to introduce you to this year's Mayfielders, an amazing group of 21 emerging professionals from across 3 countries who have dedicated the last 4 months to investigating, understanding and appreciating JEDI issues in learning environments following the great grounding of our International JEDI Committee. For those who don't know, and I have been rabbiting on about this for a while, so that's on you, the Mayfield Project is a biennial collaborative program for emerging professionals to research and share ideas on current trends in learning environments. It was designed to give young people a voice in our organisation and harness their skills and enthusiasm to better understand conceptual themes. Each time we run the project, we try something a little bit different. It's our own real-time, real-world opportunity to prototype collaborative exploration. This year, after our last online-only format, for obvious reasons, we were keen to go big, get people together in person, and bring together 21 people to work on the one topic, the very simple topic of how to design more just, inclusive and equitable learning and learning spaces that truly embrace diversity. It's been really interesting to see how enthusiastically this group has taken on the immense, meaty challenge we set them, and I think you're all going to be incredibly impressed with what they show you today. They have dove deeply. A few quick thank yous before they get started. Projects like this obviously don't happen alone, and this year I'd like to thank the Mayfield Project Committee, Ella Masters, Avril Moore and Jackie Allen, who have committed so much time over the past 2 years to get this particular program off the ground. Thank you to Hayball, who very generously shared their Sydney studio with us earlier this year for our initial meetup weekend. We could not have asked for a better place to workshop together, get everyone to meet, and I really appreciate you allowing us the intrusion into your workspace while you were still trying to do your work. And thank you again to Notosh, our fantastic facilitators, who each time I worry are going to push our Mayfielders a little bit too far in their exploratory thinking with some really difficult challenge. But each year I'm overawed to see the incredible way you pull people together and synthesize information. It's an amazing experience to watch and be part of. It is bittersweet this year as I finished my final project as chair before handing over to the very capable Ella Masters. Thank you to the Learning Environments Australasia board and past executive members, particularly our past chair, Chris Bradbury, who's not here today because he's cycling through southern France, which is fine, who enshrined the Mayfield Project Chair into Regional Council in 2019 to ensure the project's sustainability and longevity and ensure it can survive and thrive beyond any individual. This project is complex, experimental, and often expensive, so we really appreciate the continued financial support of the region to allow this incredibly valuable and exciting project to occur every 2 years as a fully funded LEA activity without requiring external sponsorship. I know it's a lot, and I really thank you for that. When we started this crazy idea to get more voices of young people to contribute to and lead parts of our conference content through research, we couldn't have imagined how the project would grow over the last 14 years and how it would enrich our organisation. It's been a really great journey. Although no longer with us, we hope John Mayfield, for whom the project is named, would be proud of the nearly 200 young and not so young professionals his ideas have supported since his initial project in 2006. But anyway, you're not here to hear from me, you're here to hear from these incredible individuals. They will introduce themselves, so I'll leave that to them. From our biggest ever pool of 50 applicants, you will see why this amazing group was formed from these 21 emerging professionals. I cannot express enough how thankful I am to each member of this group for the incredible work they have done to get to this point. I've been blown away by your discourse numerous times. And of course, this isn't just about the Mayfielders, but also their employers, who we thank you for allowing this year's cohort to take up time, effort, time out of the office and concentration to create this incredible work. We can't do this without your sponsorship in kind, so thank you very much. Please join me in welcoming some of the 2023 Mayfielders to the stage, and the rest you will hear from very soon. Thank you.
E nau hui mā, e nā mātā waka, e nā waiwai tapu, nau mai haere mai tēnā koutou katoa. E koana te nākau, kua tai mai koutou ki te whakanui e te kaupapa o te rā, nō reira, e aku rangatira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
We also acknowledge that we've had the privilege to be working on and learning from many lands across Australasia. We pay respects to elders and leaders, past and present, and any First Nation people here today. So, we have a problem. How many of you could put your hand on your heart and say, I engage all stakeholders in meaningful consultation at all stages of a design process? How do you design for justice, equity, diversity and inclusion, JEDI, for all in both physical and educational design? Is this something you're doing on an ongoing basis? We've heard from some amazing keynote speakers and projects over this conference, from Liz's call to design for a sense of belonging, an ethos of care and sustainability, that what works for Māori actually works for all. From the Learn researchers and their workshops, Derek, his call to action, inclusion, culture, resilience. We've seen innovative designs. We've had so much inspiration to create beautiful and innovative spaces. And then we heard from Buddy. Wow, I was in tears. I'm an educator, and that got me. What's stopping you? Time, budget, costs, resources, pathways, beliefs? What are you going to do to make a change? Inspiration is great, but we know that not all designers are talking to teachers. Not all curriculum is responding to learners. And when architects, teachers and planners come together, we find that even if we're working on the same project, we're not necessarily speaking the same language. Or we're only hearing the loudest voices in the room. So how can we innovate if we're not listening? We've heard a lot at this conference about what we need to do, and we're not here to tell you what we think you should do. We're here to give you the tools to start doing it, to start listening. Now, to some, listening comes naturally. It's about asking the right question, leaving behind any bias or assumptions to create space and truly hear what others are saying. But how can you be sure that that's what you're doing? And to be clear, it's not easy. Just look at the discomfort in some of our Mayfielders in our first workshop. Much like in our everyday projects, over the last 3 months of Mayfield, we faced feelings of not being heard, of miscommunication, and a lack of time and resources. So if you're like me, biting my nails, and I'm not a nail biter, or if you're like Eilish, who said in a listening meeting, I'm not comfortable with silence, or if your first thought is, well, listening's not in our budget, then a prompt or a tool might make things a little bit easier. So that's what we, the 2023 Mayfield Project, have done. We're 21 people selected by LEA because we are passionate about improving learning environments and learning experiences. We've created a toolkit, and I have to stress that this toolkit was created in collaboration with designers, with educators, with architects, with policymakers, and educators of all age groups as well. It's a toolkit to get you started so that you can start building relationships, celebrate unique identities, and empower individuals to meaningfully participate in shaping their learning experience. Working towards JEDI requires close connection, kinship or whanangatanga, so we can engage in growth and change all together. So we've created a toolkit to facilitate authentic listening.
So how did we get here? Well, we focused on the 4 main stakeholders that are associated with learning environments: designers of space, designers of learning, the community, and the learners at the centre of it all. We identified key moments or problems that each stakeholder has when listening becomes difficult. And I'll give you an example of an area that we looked at, which was for the community. There's often a lack of time and resources for engaging the community. And when engagement does happen, it's usually in really big group forums where you only hear the loudest voices, what we nicknamed the Karen problem. So we started to think of possible solutions that we could approach these problems. What if we created a tool to build relationships with those around us whilst also meeting the national curriculum? What if we embedded a tool into the yearly annual curriculum? What if we created partnerships with local businesses and got the learners to go out into the community whilst meeting their requirements? And this is just one example of a problem that we've tried to approach. Each one of the Mayfielders' individual questioning and investigation over the last few months has led us to create a toolkit to try and make listening easier and more accessible for each one of these stakeholders. So, our toolkit is made up of 251 cards in 4 sets across the 4 stakeholders. The cards vary between observation cards, question cards, or activity prompt cards. And each card set is going to help you listen and be heard. Each one has been tailored to meet your needs, whether you're a designer of space or a learner. And the cards can be used in various ways. For example, the cards could be used as prompts for a conversation between 2 teachers trying to come up with an innovative learning experience. Or the cards could be used to collate 30 learner voices about what they think a space should feel like, independent of an architect. And alongside these cards, we've made ready-made workshops when you're lacking time. We've also prepared unit plans and curriculum plans to put some of these card sets into your curriculum. And all of these resources can be found on the new LEA website, which hosts the Mayfield 2023 work, and they include downloadable and printable card sets. And not only this, these resources were tested in real life and against peer-reviewed literature. I'm going to take you through an example for one of our Mayfielders, Kath. She used one of her workshops for her class in Tassie, and the workshop was called A Home for Little Penguin, which was inspired by the children's book with the same name. She started with a simple prompt card, which asked the learners, what did Little Penguin feel within the space that was described in the book? After using this book as an exemplar, this led to the students being able to identify their needs and a need for a quiet space within their classroom. It was amazing, and they were empowered to design and create their own quiet space within their classroom. They became the leaders in shaping their own learning environment, all from just a card. And this was just one test for one workshop for one user. The reason that we have created this toolkit is because we want to find out, what does it actually mean to include everyone in learning environments? We know that everyone's needs are diverse and different, but we need to be better at hearing them because it's important. So whether you're a designer of space or a designer of learning, these cards will enable you to have conversations to facilitate authentic listening in order to meet the needs around you. Imagine the impact we could have if each one of us utilised these cards and really listened.
Imagine indeed. Now, before we get any further, I'd like to ask the audience, can anyone identify this image? Uno card, that's right, it's fantastic. So, if anyone hasn't played Uno, the reverse card means it's now your turn. We're taking this presentation and flipping it onto you, the audience. Now, how did we do that? We went full Oprah. if you look under your seats right now, you're about to set a car. Car. Just want to manage expectations here we could not afford. If you can't find a card under your table, join another table. If you're sitting by yourself, feel free to join another group. Everyone's shuffling around, great stuff. For the next 5 minutes, we are going to be participating in using the cards that the Mayfielders have put together. All these cards have been taken from each of the 4 sets developed by the Mayfield team, designed to facilitate conversation, responses, and room for thought. We want you to use this 5 minutes with the person next to you or in groups of 2 and 3. Look at each of your cards, take turns, and while you're doing so, think about the question. How can we facilitate JEDI when we respond to these questions? And your time starts now.
We've got Let's Dance.
Sorry?
Let's Dance. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I was like, well, I saw it. I'd like to use just that transition. Like, what do you do? No, it's so good.
Yeah. Great.
It's really helpful. It really helps right by the scene. It's really helpful to have it. So for students, is there lunch? Right now, modify your learning space to minimize sensory it would benefit primarily from this. Yeah. How might everyone else benefit? Well, someone might say, where do they have That's so good. I think it's really like it's going to be like now. I think it's like especially in like 5 minutes. Actually, get to start talking.
The guy might not have time to tell me. Might not have the time to tell the microphone, so I think by this time he'll be right around. Do you know what I mean? Because he might not know that you're coming.
Like tell them you've got 30 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No, as in just fill it sooner.
Yeah.
We've got.
No, because it's
No,
so
you
like
haven't.
right now.
Yeah. I suppose that it'll throw like the actual table. Yeah, the workshop gets through. Doing well then. Should we do no? Are we? Wait, get up our space. Using movement. Is that the word around? Using movement. How do you like what do we? Just like I'm just gonna have a run. Space.
All right, everyone.
Spin around and
All right, everyone. 5 minutes is just about up. Thanks, everyone, for participating. I saw a few people busting out some moves. That's an interesting way to answer a question. Interpretive dance is a dying art form, especially in administration. We're going to hear now from some of these conversations. We're going to listen to their question and their response. Who'd like to go first? Thank you very much. What was your question like?
We explored outdoor spaces and what opportunities they would provide for learning that we wouldn't normally have the opportunity for. So they came up with a lot of ideas and suggestions, some which were...
Yeah, if there wasn't an outdoor space and you created one, we talked about, and I'm tag on, Deb and I would tag team on this, because Deb looked at it from the perspective of whatever you do on the inside, you think about it in terms of doing that exact same thing on the outside. So whatever your instruction is, but if you didn't have it and you got it, you could do outdoor instruction. It could become a play area for recreation, those kinds of things. It could also become an informal learning area for students, a breakout space outside of the room where they can get fresh air and they can study and allow their mind to wander and those kinds of things. And Deb, you talked.
Great example.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So we talked about modalities of teaching design principles within an internal learning space and how that connects then through the outdoor-indoor connectivity. So we've been doing a lot of work in South Australia around what happens straight outside the internal space to go to the outside. So what are those reflective, quiet, even on little huddle or explicit little teaching spaces you have directly outside that flows through. And then the next layer is the more sort of gathering spaces around cafes and working with kids in like a gathering around a fire pit, that kind of feel. And then moving further out to your active spaces where you can throw the ball and kick the ball and bounce the basketball and play four square in those. So what you think about your internal learning space, the loud, noisy to the quiet, reflective, needs to be the same as you're moving through the outdoors of your learning environments. So that's where we landed.
Fantastic response. Anyone else? I did see a table with some trace paper and some cards. Where are they?
Pat?
Are they in the back?
Pat, before you go over
There
there,
we
we
go.
might start over here. Pat, in the back here, over
Oh,
here.
perfect. Thanks, Ella. Didn't see that.
Thank you. For someone with a hearing disability, I got a really good card. The card is conversation, listening to the users of the space. And the whole conference, I felt very included for someone who has to just be a bit conscious about what I can and can't hear. The amplification of this room's been wonderful, so that's terrific over the last 3 days for me. I talked about in my group that one of the problems, I suppose, of a building like this, a room like this, is the size of it. I've got no ability to kind of converse with all the people here. So in the conversation we came up with the notion of the circular tables, very different to the old design of a conference where we probably would have been in rows. So the design of the round tables goes to the nature of the card that one of my colleagues had, which was collaboration. So the design of the tables is now a much more modern and contemporary design that facilitates collaboration and conversation. So I think our card was a great conversation starter, so thank you very much to the designers of the kit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So it looks like this group's produced something. Would you like to talk through?
So what our table did was slightly different. We actually came together to map out how these cards can then inform a slightly more complex data structure, starting with more factual prompts and going to more scenario-based cards. We also had a card on collaborative learning environments, which then brought us to what if you are a new transfer student from different contexts in the locality, and then what if you are an educator teaching a smaller group in a very large space. We came up with many, many very interesting answers. Would you like to start us off?
Yes, the question that we were posed was that if you had a small group of 20 people in a space that was designed for 60 people, what might be the impacts on your experience or your learning? And actually, we thought of all the obvious ones like, noise, distraction, and we figured very quickly we were thinking in the negative. And we also thought, well, hang on, there's some positive impacts. You could be distracted in a positive way. Hamish, my colleague here, said that, and it's what I've seen actually work in the Australian School of Mathematics and Science, where you're working in a group area, where one of the students said, I'm sitting in my class, but just over there I could hear another learning advisor or a teacher, and he was doing something more interesting. So it's sort of, we were starting to branch out into thinking of more positive impacts of working with other positive distractions.
Thanks very much. So, a very insightful input. So you might have done this activity and gone, that was fun. You might have thought, this isn't a question I probably might not have been asked in our role. You might also have thought that it was quite familiar, something that you might do with your students, but maybe not with adults. But in all of those cases, we've had a conversation, we've done a prompt, we've done an activity, we've used a tool. What comes next?
So I've given you 5 minutes to discuss your cards. Ran a couple of little workshops sneakily. So Pat, just a quick question. Do you think we achieved authentic engagement?
Probably not. Back to you.
Yeah, I didn't think so either. Authentic listening is more than just a tokenistic prompt and a short conversation. And here is the crux of the problem. But Bracken, we're architects. Of course we consult on pedagogy. We run workshops with our students. We are teachers. We don't need somebody to tell us how to teach. We all have these grand ideas, and in our own minds, we all think we're listening. And as part of this Mayfield project, we have all gone on this pathway. And all our views have been disrupted. Because we finally realised, when we were all in Sydney, crammed into that stuffy room that we saw earlier, we weren't truly understanding each other because we weren't really listening. So now, we invite all of you to join us at this point in our journey, to come and play, explore, and discover. We want you to experience authentic listening and be inspired by the opportunities of JEDI. But be warned, this toolkit isn't the answer. It's a stepping stone onto greater possibilities. JEDI is messy and it's complex, and it isn't something that we can easily define, even though we try. And you can't tie it up nicely in a bow. And that's why we need all of you. In our professional lives, as we've heard, we may feel like we don't have the time, or the fees, or whatever that is. But honestly, we would love to know what stops you from truly listening. Because authentic listening is a circle. It never really stops. And as much as we've been telling you how important it is, and as much as we've seen so many amazing presentations over the last few days, especially the one before us, that was amazing. Really got our point across, so we are not the gatekeepers. So now it's our time to listen to you. These toolkits are a starting point. We've made them as easy and accessible as we knew how. We had 3 months, so. So please, go back to your firms, go back to your schools, go back to your offices, download them, print them, share them. Use them on a project, give them to your peers. Just use them to start a conversation. Be the leader, ask the questions. Play the games, engage with people, but do it with open minds and opening it. So, I'm asking you, are you really listening?
I would like to just quickly invite Danny Martin, the Mayfield Project Chair, and all our 2023 Mayfielders up to the stage.
Working and playing on the Warringah Passage in Melbourne.
My name is Brian. I am an architect from Garland in Adelaide, South Australia.
I'm Jason Slayton, and I'm a senior learning designer in Bendigo, Australia.
Hello everyone, I'm Lisa. I'm part of the design team and the facility planning. Hi, my name is Kira, and I'm a landscape architect at Western City. I'm Katrina, and I'm an architect from Canada on the land of the Ngunnawal and Yabba. Hello, my name is Jocelyn, and I'm an architect designer from Sydney. I'm Karishma, an architecture graduate from Australia and here. I'm Charlotte, key designer from the main releases.
I am Pat Giles, and I am an architect working in Melbourne, Victoria.
Hi, I'm Georgie, and I'm a graduate of architecture in Adelaide. Hi everyone, my name is Rachel Thompson, and I'm an architectural designer based in Newcastle. My name is Lisa Simpson, and I'm a teacher in Cairns.
Hi there, I'm Susie Latham. I teach at an Aboriginal Special Assistance School, and I'm also a PhD candidate at the University of Melbourne.
Hi, I'm a designer in Sydney. Hi, I'm Pat, and I'm a teacher in Hello, I am Malia Bliss, and I am an educational psychologist at the Union for Emory Office in Auckland. I'm Jess, and I'm a designer in Western Australia. I'm Yao, and I'm an architect based in Melbourne.
Kia my name is Lynn Morales, and I'm an educator from Auckland, New Zealand.
So we just want to say a quick thank you to Danny. So Danny Martin is the Mayfield Project Chair, and she's been involved with Mayfield since its very start. She's been part of 3 projects, about that, and the chair for about 6 years, along with some other roles within LEA. She's been key to making this possible, for bringing together all of us early career architects, designers, educators, policymakers, thinkers, and for allowing this to happen. So we just want to say a really big thank you to Danny.
Give that one more time for the Mayfielders, ladies and gentlemen. The Mayfielders.